year 3 out of working in the Cirrus 620 in the winter. So for this winter, I did a couple of changes. So this is kind of an update from that video I did, I guess 2 years ago now, to show you the main changes. So you can't see a huge number from the outside here. I think the biggest noticeable one is that Thule on the top and a new cell antenna on the back. But yeah, let's go to the Thule. I'm still using that solar suitcase out front. Really awesome. Lets me get a bunch of extra watts during the winter. But yeah, the Thule's up top. Gonna need a ladder to get up here. So here we go. Yeah, so this is the big mod here. I've got this Thule for extra storage. Now the 620 does not support a rack. So this was something I had to do. This is a Swagman rack off e-trailer. Has worked great. I was able to drill into the frame of the 620. Kudos not to Cirrus. They provide you with no information on this. I guess it's NuCamp. But I was desperate enough because of the lack of storage to do this. So this lets me do is now I've got a Thule that, you know, I can store all sorts of stuff. So this is my AT skis for whatever I need. Still a little bit, gotta make sure you shut it right. And it definitely is a little bit of a juggling act to make sure that you are not falling backwards off the ladder. But yeah, the other big change is I actually removed my AC unit and replaced it with a max fan. So this has been kind of revolutionary. It really lets me ventilate the camper so much better, and works really well with the rails in front and in back. I couldn't have done this with the AC, it was too bulky. It's actually quite an easy change. There's a 12-volt wire already there. It's a 14-inch opening, and just, you know, open it up, sealed it, and hardest part was getting the old AC off. The other addition is with this roof rack, I was able to put on a 200 watt solar panel. I used to have a 100 watt there. It's a 200 watt bifacial. And man, now I can really get some power input. So this plus the, you know, standard 215 watt really lets you bring in power in the winter, which is crucial because not every day is nice and sunny like this. But when you have it, it really is essential to get all the power you can. So thus far, this has worked great. No movement. You know, this rack is solidly on there. The max fan has been amazing. It's just really lets you ventilate so much better than the just single Cirrus fan. So I'll climb back down and show the other mods. The thing is, I've gone, just because of Wi-Fi was such a pain, I just wound up getting a cell phone booster or cell phone data access point. So that's right. This wires up to this antenna, which gives me pretty decent reception. Other thing I did, just because I camp in cold so often, is did this wood frame with some insulation. It's about 1.5 inches of foam insulation that helps me hopefully keep my consumption down. It's been a cold winter. So I do have an extra propane tank that I use just in case, you know, I run out. Very useful. And then, you know, try to put some insulation in here to just let me keep the heat a little bit better. So yeah, nothing else really visually on the outside. So in here, biggest thing was I replaced my monitor with this BenQ one. It's been really awesome for working with a Mac. It's just one wire, so I now have it connected to my power converter, and I guess my inverter. So I can turn it on and off, and it's just one cable does all my USB, all my power, all that, and then a keyboard connected. But the other big addition that I've really liked is this little table here, because you have such limited room for stuff with the Cirrus. So I got this table off Etsy, and I guess this will be hard to demonstrate, but there we go. Okay, so it folds down when not in use like that, pretty minimal. Only thing is it blocks the 12-volt port. but then, you know, you put it up here. And then I've got all this additional space. You can sit here in a pinch. It's pretty tight with the monitor folded back there, but not too bad. You know, it's certainly doable. And then keeping this seat arrangement the same. And did a bunch of systems work that you can't really see. I actually added an extra 100 amp hour battery, so you can see the 100 amp hour stacked in there. The, you know, lengths are different, so it's not ideal. You know, the cable length going into the main battery compartment with 200 amp hour batteries, but it does help me keep my, you know, 300 amp hours is a heck of a lot better than 200. I might upgrade that in the future. So here's my little cell phone access point that I've wired in. That's really useful, and I can turn that on and off with some switches that I have. I've gotten a lot braver about wiring things and trying to neaten things up, because it was kind of a mess before, but pretty proud. It's been simplified a lot. So feeling good about that. Other big thing was I actually switched out, you can't see it here, but the WIFCO auto sensing converter is a hunk of junk. Doesn't auto sense anything, and my little tiny generator that I carry with me wouldn't power it. If it boosted up the power, it would stall the generator. So I put in this really nice smaller, I guess it's a 20 amp hour charger, so it doesn't charge the lithium super fast, but it's doable on the little generator, and has, you know, really charges the lithium batteries the way they should be. The WIFCO never really worked at all. So now I've got backup, which I really appreciate. I should have put in a DC to DC charger, but woulda, coulda, shoulda. Yeah. But yeah, the Max fan is so nice. You know, as soon as I ramp this up, it's still pretty quiet, and it helps it out a bunch. I'd say the other big thing for me is that this has helped a lot with condensation. So I used to camp with just the fan over here, just, you know, open, but this right here, having it run on slow is really helpful. I notice a lot less condensation buildup when I just leave it running very slowly. I don't have enough power to run a dehumidifier or something like that. That's just power prohibitive. So this is kind of the next best thing. You know, did a bunch of camping really cold temperature where you get thermal bridging, you know, over in the corners there where you don't have as much insulation, and where the aluminum, basically the aluminum side rails are right next to this, so you get a lot of thermal bridging, and that is colder, so it attracts condensation. But if you have drier air and are able to vent out that moist air that you're respirating, then it's really helpful. So that had just the Max fan, I can't recommend enough. I know I'm not in a warm climate, so I don't really need that AC. So yeah, huge help for me. I still have to wipe down the aluminum bridge up front below the bed, but that's not hard. But again, that's thermal bridging. You know, you can't really do, short of adding a lot of insulation and tearing all this stuff off, I can't really do anything about that. So that's fine. This is so much better than having that old AC unit up there, you know, 100-pound AC unit. So the other thing would be that this front window has started to, you know, it started to come off on the side, so I've taped it over. Again, not a huge fan of NuCamp on this one. You know, they're selling a very expensive camper and offering very little in the way of help to those of us trying to DIY it. So I just wound up taping it and putting sealant in it, and it seems to have worked, but there are tales of them flying off the camper on a highway, which is not what I want. Not cool. So I wish they supported that better for older models and stood by their camper, but they don't. So it's left to DIYers like myself to just forge ahead. So I don't trust them as much as I used to, but they do make a great product. This camper is just incredible. It really is the best cold weather camper that I know of, with the, you know, dual insulated windows, the all-day system. It's really been an awesome place to work from when I can. Okay, thanks for listening to my thoughts. Worth the price of admission of hopefully nothing. Okay, have a good one.